After 30 years of being trapped by pain, I finally broke through using the latest science based strategies, and I'm here now to present to you the same strategies that helped me feel better, and at no cost, and there's no catch. Greetings. It's nice to see you again, and also a special welcome to anyone who's here for the first time. Today I'm going to be talking about the importance of self care in chronic pain. And, the word self care sometimes connotes something that you do when you actually have some time in your life, or, a little bit of stolen moments because your kids are at school and you have in between doing any kind of responsibilities that you have. Well, I want to give you a little bit of background about how important self care is. Because self care, when you have chronic pain, it's how you maintain yourself in addition to the types of treatments you may be getting. You may be going for physical therapy, occupational therapy, you may be visiting a pain psychologist, you may be taking medications, and that's all the medical treatment. Okay, I'm talking about what you do with your hours and your days between the next appointments that you may have. Maybe you don't go to the doctor very often. Maybe you're stable with your pain condition and you see your doctor maybe twice a year. But you still need to take care of yourself on a daily basis. And before I get into describing some activities that are very helpful for self care, I want to first share my experience when I was hit by a drunk driver and developed complex regional pain syndrome. I was only 33 years old. And the reason I want to share the experiences I'm going to be talking about is when I talk with people as a pain coach and I talk about self care, sometimes they shrug it off and say, sure, you have a different life. My life's too busy. I can't do that for myself. And you're different than me, and you were able to do it. So I'm going to share some very private things with you because I want you to understand that nobody has a perfect life. There's always something going on that makes self-care a difficult thing to do, but you need to prioritize it. So I was 33 years old when I was hit by the drunk driver. My son was almost turning 6, and I was only 2 years into my second marriage. So we have the situation where I was a blended family where my son had his dad who he'd visit on the weekends and then spend long time, vacations with during the summer and Christmas. And then, my son was dealing with a stepdad. So we were considered back in the 80s, we were a broken family. At school, they understood my son came from a broken family. So as a rambunctious first grader, when he'd get in trouble with the other kids, it was my son who was always identified as the ringleader because the other kids came from intact families. So I started getting phone calls all the time about, Bonnie, your son is doing this and that. And I'd come and find out the situation, and I'd realize, it wasn't so much that my son was a ringleader. I mean, by any stretch of the imagination, he's not an angel, but he was just a normal, first grader. So how I dealt with it, because I was in chronic pain then. I had been hit by the drunk driver. They hadn't even diagnosed what I had yet. So I had to come up with a solution. My son's behavior was not out of bounds. It was just, he's more trouble in a classroom or a recess with the other boys. So I started showing up in the PTA meetings. I'd go and become active. And that was a huge, big stretch for me. I was on disability. I could barely move, but I thought I'd go sit in these meetings so they'd see I was an involved, caring parent. And that made a difference. I suddenly the complaints about my son really dropped off. So it was like taking my finger, putting it into a leaking the dam, that the dike that's leaking, and you put a finger in there to solve that problem. So I was trying to do the parenting and solve the problem with my son. At the same time, I was trying to get a diagnosis. I was in terrible pain, and I had to mount a lawsuit against the person who had hit me. I had to go to an attorney and deal with personal injury, which, of course, any kind of legal action is very, very stressful, all the while maintaining my new marriage. So I had that going on, plus the loss of a career because I ended up going on permanent disability. So I did not have perfection and easy things going on in my life then, as you can understand. And so that was where I was and what was going on. And it was a long, long journey. Eventually, my chronic pain, which had no ending at the time, helped break down my marriage. So I ended up going through divorce. And if any of you out there have gone through divorce, it's not a pleasant situation. Though I ended up on friendly terms with my soon-to-be ex-husband at that time, and we still are friends. But it was very, it was shattering of who I was, and very much concerned about what my future was going to be. So I've been through many things that maybe some of you have gone through. Of course, I have to go back and say I did settle my lawsuit. It didn't give me back my health. The settlement I got, it did not reimburse me for the quality of life that I lost. Meaning, I had to live over 30 years in terrible pain. So, but I did get the legal aspects of my life done with, which was great. And I could concentrate yet again on recovering. So, but during that time, when I look back, I was doing some self care. And there was a seminal moment in my life when I stood in my doctor's office. And this is back in the day when your charts weren't on the computer. I mean, can you imagine? They were in manila folders. The nurse would bring the chart in, and mine was growing thicker and thicker by the month. And he had it on the desk there. And I stood up and I walked over and I pointed to it and I said, you see me once a month to write my scripts. I have to live every day and every hour in between these appointments, and I'm suffering. And he said, yeah, I know it's going to take courage to live this way. And so I left his office that day and I thought, well, I'm really tired of suffering. What can I do to improve my days? How can I put quality into my days? And that's where the concept of self-care comes into it. And I know during the 1990s, there was all these commercials about women taking bubble baths, saying, oh, take me away. And they'd be relaxing from their life as being a mom and a wife, or coming home after a hard day of work. Okay, that's their self-care. Or maybe a decadent piece of chocolate that was there. Oh, self-care. Well, that's not the type of self-care I'm talking about, though. A leisurely bubble bath is nice, to relax the body, which is great. So the self-care I'm talking about is how you get up in the morning and you get yourself ready for the day. And I'm not talking about getting ready for the day, going out and going to work and getting your clothes on. I'm talking about your brain is getting you ready for the day, because it's the brain where everything is processed. And I've talked before, and I will talk in future shows about the physiology of pain. And though you may have had an injury in another part of your body and it has healed, and that's why you're considered having chronic pain if you're here viewing this because you have chronic pain. So you have your brain talking to you all the time about how bad that limb or the part of your trunk or your stomach or wherever your pain is, or maybe it's full body pain. It's always telling you that it's bothering you. It's in agony. Okay, so we know the brain is really important. But the neat thing about the brain is different parts of it can be, I don't want to say massage, but yeah, you can change, you can modulate how it's processing things. And I know in my other videos, I'm not sophisticated enough yet with technology to point up and say, go to that video. So I do talk about a comfort cake in one of my other videos. So yes, I'm famous for the comfort cake of making decisions of how you're going to go through your day, layering things, activities that are going to make you feel better. Well, consider this a self-care comfort cake, because we've already know within your comfort cake of maybe doing stretching, making sure that you're eating good, nutritious food that's going to feed your microbiome. So you're going to have serotonin, which is really an important feel-good neurotransmitter and a mood booster going through your body. So that's going to be one of your comfort layers. But now we're going to get more specific. We're going to talk about self-care layers. What are you going to do to layer in the self-care throughout your day and through the night to improve your quality of life? And the first thing I'd like to suggest is you think about yourself as being the conductor of your brain. You get to stand there and conduct what aspects of it you want to emphasize to feel better. And one of the first things that I did in my life, and I suggest to many people, is you think about it when you wake up and you realize, oh, another day. rather than doing an inventory of your body going, oh, can't believe how much pain I'm in, and oh, not another day of agony, that you think about, okay, what's a positive way you could think about yourself, something good about yourself. Some people don't like the word affirmation, that they feel like they're a failure, that they can't even achieve that. And I say it's more of a statement about yourself that's life affirming. When I wake up and still had a lot of pain from complex regional pain syndrome, I would think to myself, what can I do today to help and improve somebody else's life? What difference can I make in their life? Because I'm a helper. I think Mr. Rogers used to say, "There's helpers in the world," and I'm a born helper. I like to help people. So I would go into that part of my brain that would think, okay, well, today I'm going to help somebody learn this, or today I'm going to get more information. So when this person calls and tells me they have this problem, I can say, well, this is something I learned today. So I wanted to think about today, what difference can I make in somebody else's life? So that was my positive feelings about myself that I would say. And then I would go to my trusty. Back in the day, of course, I had what do you call the little tape recorder, Pac-Man? I think a Walkman. I had a Walkman, and I'd put on my favorite tapes. And at the time, I was listening to the group U2. I like that, and I always liked Jackson Browne, like that. Remember, I'm 72 years old, so my uh, taste in music may be different than your taste in music, but I always put on some music to make me feel really good. And so I'd already, got my brain thinking, okay, something positive that I was going to do, have purpose for my day, need to have some kind of sense of purpose. And then I'd get up and I'd do some stretches and I'd have my breakfast. And now, when we talk about self care, we talk about making sure that you have good nutrition. That's good self care. I'm not talking about dieting. I'm not talking about getting on the scale. I'm not talking about measuring your waistline to see, oh, am I losing weight? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about eating good food that's going to support what's going on in your body in a positive way. Okay, so you've woken up, you've made an affirmation about yourself, or whatever term you want to call it, that you're putting you're alerting your brain that you're going to think in a positive way for the day, positivity. Okay, and you perhaps listen to music. Most people, there's very few people I've ever talked to who don't like music. So music's a universal, no matter what culture, whatever faith tradition, whatever. Music plays a role in people's lives. So you have your music going on. You're getting your breakfast. Most people have breakfast. And here's something really interesting. Self-care has to do with how you take care of yourself and make yourself feel good. Okay. I'm not talking about shopping therapy or, okay, I'm going to go spend a lot of money and I'm going to feel really good if I have a new, back in the day, women would say, I get a new hat. Women don't wear hats very often. So I want you to feel good about yourself. And something interesting I've noticed on YouTube is people show all sorts of food preparations. And I'm not talking about doing fancy recipes. I'm talking about even taking an apple and dicing it a different way to make it like a star, or, preparing their oatmeal in a different way, or putting in a special cup. And so there's some pleasing things you could do with the usual things that you have in your life. It doesn't mean you have to go out. And again, I'm into caution you from spending a lot of money. And so if you play around with your food in a creative way, or maybe even go to your garden and get a little flower and put it in a little vase and buy your breakfast meal, things that are going to lift your spirits. And we're talking about that. And I want you to think of things to tailor personally for yourself. What's going to make you feel good? It may be that you have a special cologne or perfume that you like. So you dab some on and you can refresh it during the day, and that makes you feel special. Or maybe it's an inexpensive tube of lipstick that you make sure that you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and you brush your hair, brush your teeth, brush your hair, right? And then maybe, put some makeup on if that makes you feel good, if that's something that you enjoy doing. That's really important. And I made sure in my days that when I'd get up, I'd have a routine. And that would be, I'd get my son off to school, and then I would, um, take care of put my face on it. I get the old fashioned way they said, put your face on. I'd make sure to put a little lipstick on, and make sure my hair was combed, and face the world, even though I wasn't reporting to work. So those are some things to think about. Another thing to do that may be comfortable for you, and again, it's all about you. not what Bonnie did, but these are some things. So if it's comfortable for you, maybe start thinking about what other activities that I can do that will enrich what I want to do in life. Maybe you're stagnated in the type of job you have because the condition you have means you can't work in that way. So maybe you want to exercise your brain and do some research on the computer, Google something, find out. I did not have the computer for the first 20 years of my pain condition. I'd have to actually leave the house and go to the library, and I would have routines. I'd have this day of the week I do research at the library. This day of the week I belonged to a very inexpensive gym. I would go to the gym, and one thing about being a member of the gym was I had a place to go to, and I had people to talk to if I was on a treadmill, and I have my book there. I could talk to the person, and that's something to consider. I know nowadays they have some memberships that are month to month, and they're very low. I'm not saying you have to join a gym. I'm just saying in my life, it was a reason to get out of the house and to socialize a bit. And I did not work with a trainer, so there wasn't that at additional cost. And how much pain I was in for the day would inform what activities I would do for that day. So I made sure that I was trying to check off that I tried to see other human beings for the day, because when you're in chronic pain and you're out of the workforce, it's very easy to feel isolated and removed from society. So that was something that I did. I took the focus off of what's going to cure me and which doctor is going to do this and what discipline of psychology, other types of medical care that was available. I did not run around looking for care because I believed I had already had, quote, state of the art treatment at a prestigious university's medical center, and it created devastating side effects, permanent side effects in my body, and it spread my neurological condition. So maybe that's why I stopped running after every cure that I've heard about and looked internally to me of what I could do to raise up my levels of comfort until science came up with some new idea about how the brain and the pain works. And it did. When I learned about neuroplasticity in 2010, that was the game changer for me. And again, I did not have someone help me heal from that. I participated in my own healing. And by that point in time, back to dealing with life's changes, I was remarried. And at the time, still am a stepmom of two wonderful people, to my kids. They're adult kids now. But when they entered my life, they were adolescents. Adolescence is an exciting time, but it's a time of turmoil. When they came into my life, my son had just started college. And so even though he was an acting out first grader, he went to college and he is now a college professor. And as a matter of fact, that my biological son, he was almost turning 6 when he saw experienced his mom become permanently disabled of chronic pain. He finally got to walk the hills in Berkeley with me when he was, I forgot how old he was, but it was 30 years later. So he was 36 years old when he's walking the hills in Berkeley, and I was pain free for the first time. So he got to experience a new mom, to see me pain free walking with him. So he only knew me all those decades as living with terrible pain. So, of course, he's very excited for me. And my two stepkids came in my life when they came into my life in 2000. So it was 10 more years until I learned about neuroplasticity and went through my changes. And they're both very proud of me. I mean, all three of my kids are proud of me. But my stepkids got the joy of seeing me overcome the pain. And they met me, as teenagers, and didn't quite understand the level of what I was living with, but they saw a difference because when they used to come and visit us, because they lived with their mom, and they'd come and visit their dad and me. I was this new stepmom, and they'd have to come and say, "Hi, Bonnie." I'd be in bed because I was in so much pain, and they'd go out and do an activity with their dad and have fun, and then they'd come back and get ready to go back home, and they'd come in the bedroom again. "Bye, Bonnie, we love you." So that was how I was involved in their life, though I helped them in many ways by providing a lot of guidance to them. So I was still active in their life, though I couldn't be, quote, hands-on involved in that way. but I never gave up and used I did use my cognitive ability. So fast forward to I'm sitting here now creating this video for you because I want to help you improve your quality of life. But I also am open, honest, and real to tell you I have an imperfect life. And I found time to do these things because I believed ultimately I was important. And especially I was important to my loved ones. And I wanted to be the best I could be for them. And to be the best I could be for them meant they didn't have to witness me suffering all the time. And if they saw me, even when I was in terrible pain, but I was doing something productive, that I said I had a reason, I was learning something, and I'd have piles and piles of books because I dove deep into learning about, of all things, World War I and World War II, because I was very interested in the soldiers that got wounded and ended up with complex regional pain syndrome, my condition that I was diagnosed with. And I was first diagnosed by a doctor during the Civil War. And so I had an affinity in the back of my head. I need to find out about soldiers who had the same experience of my burning and spasming and loss of ability. And so my two stepkids would come and visit me, and they'd see me reading books, which was great because they kept thinking, wow, Bonnie really knows. She reads a lot. She's very educated. And I grew in their estimation about, wow, she's not just lying in bed suffering. She's actively involved with doing things. So it was an interesting saga of me recovering. And now I look back and I'm really grateful to myself that I never gave up on myself. And that's what I'm wishing and hoping for you. Don't give up on yourself. You are a good person. And I know you have it in you to do self-care. So I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and hit like, of course, if you've enjoyed this video. And leave a comment about some of the self-care that you do for yourself. Okay, bye for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you found it useful, please give it a thumbs up. And also, please subscribe so you'll be given notice when the next video is uploaded. And also, to go an extra step, how about leaving me a comment so I know I'm not out here all alone trying to help people?